You're listening to Packers Talk Network. PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Myles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans, just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media distractions and nonsense. We're sticking to real football each week, diving into the top topics around the Pack, breaking down games during the season, and of course now sorting through all the draft dreams and drama of the offseason. If y'all want to support the pod, please spike that like button for us. And most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, find our channel, hit subscribe. It does us a great deal of good, and we just love you subscribers, man. Come hang out with us every week. We are here every Monday night with you at 9:30 p.m. Central. And tonight we got a trade to go over. I guess we spoke that into existence last week. And then, of course, we're diving into some big boys here from the draft class. Very excited for that. Been kind of looking forward to this breakdown in this episode. I think it's going to be very meaningful to the Packers draft this year, whether it's O-line or D-line. So very excited about this one. And we have a guest with us this evening. Let me bring him up. Mr. Matt Freilich. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us on the Pack Weekly Pod.
Appreciate you guys having me. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Monday nights, I'll be sitting there trying to put a kid to bed. Maybe the kid's not going to bed. I know some of us can relate to that. And all of a sudden I'll pull up Twitter and be like, the guys are streaming. I'm like, 9:30. I kind of like it. And it's a good, especially like Mondays, no football, right? Like it's a great time to kind of dive into it. And you guys have caught my attention. And appreciate you bringing me on. All timely stuff. We have actually a trade to talk about. And we're less than 10 days away from the NFL draft. It's what could be sweeter.
Heck yeah, man. Absolutely. So let me first get our business taken care of here. We are once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as the Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets. Summerfest is coming up. Get those tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support all those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. So, first things first here, I think last week we were kind of kidding around about a potential trade. So here we are now. How are we feeling about the Wicks trade? Matt, do you have any specific, emotions about this, or just kind of undecided?
The first thing I'll say is 3:30 in the afternoon Central Time, Packers going to dump something on a Friday. That's just classic how 1265 operates. But I do feel like, emotion standpoint, we all wanted Wicks to be whatever, right? Whether he'd be a contributor to that offense or that high-end ceiling that everyone wanted him to be, the replacement of Devontae Adams, right? And I just think it came to a point where when they draft two receivers last year, plus you got Reed, plus you got Watson on their, deals coming up after this year, it's like, how do you really get another guy in there? And he was probably the only one I would imagine, maybe Jaden Reed, that teams had been shopping around for. And I think there was rumors, it seemed like the last 18 months, honestly, maybe even 2 years, where even Romeo Doubs is in the mix. Obviously, he's not on the team anymore, but it is what it is. If they swap him for a 5th-round pick, they get another pick there. You open up more target share for Watson, Reed, and Golden. And then, of course, once Kraft comes back, it'll be good too. So it was just getting a little bit sticky in there. I don't necessarily know how much that impacts Savion Williams' role. Maybe it does. Maybe it makes him more a viable option. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, you would have wished to see the peak of Dontavian Wicks to be on the Packers. I don't know if we'll have that. Maybe that'll be with the Eagles. That'll remain to be seen with what happens with their receiving room. But sucks to see him go, but better for some of the other guys that are on the team right now.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Tim, how about you, man? How did this one hit you?
I mean, I was a little bit surprised by the timing of it, but somebody was eventually probably going to have to go, because if they draft another receiver just by the numbers, you got too many guys and you're not going to extend them all. There's 2 guys under contract after 2026, which Golden and Savion Williams. And I know they want to get Watson done, but until it's done, it's not done. So Reed, Wicks, there's not enough room for all 3 of them to be re-signed. And Wicks he's going to be down the depth chart again. Like he's going to be your 3 or your 4 at receiver. And then when you factor in Tucker Kraft, if they take a rookie, like it's just numbers wise, it just wasn't adding up for him. And I also I like the player. I like what Wicks has flashed, but he's had 3 seasons and it's always kind of been like a tease with him. His best year was his rookie year. Took a step back in 2024 with all the drops. Rebounded a little bit in 2025, but you still only got flashes of that. Like you had a big game on Thanksgiving in Detroit, which was great. But then like the rest of the season, he didn't do a whole lot, right? Like it was some plays, some games here and there, but there was no consistency with it. And he had his opportunities when you factor in Jaden Reed missed most of the season. Watson was out half the year. Tucker Kraft was out the second half of the year. Like there were opportunities in the passing game, and he just, for whatever reason, couldn't put it together consistently. So I like him, but I also get it, like looking ahead to the future. And I think the timing was a little bit, I don't want to say strange, but that was the only surprising part, because I think it was almost like a trade you make once you draft a receiver. If they take one in the draft, then you say, okay, now they're going to trade him. To take one now, it's kind of telegraphing that they're going to take a receiver. But that's fine too, because I fully expect them to take somebody. And yeah, it's just, you're not going to, I think the decision was already made. You're not going to extend them. There's just not a spot for him going forward. So get something for him now. The fact you can get 2 draft picks and you already have enough receivers as it is, and you're likely to draft another one coming up. Yeah, I think between the numbers of having so many guys in the room and the fact that he's going in the last year's contract, it makes sense to do it now.
Yeah, no, and that was the thing for me, and we talked about it a little bit last week. Is like if you're going to add a guy to this room, and we covered receivers last week, there's several that are going to be tempting to add, and all the way through day 3. If you're going to add a guy, you got to subtract a guy. There's just not enough room in the room, and yeah, he kind of was that tease. He didn't really, Matt, to your point, like, are you going to see his peak or not? Maybe you did. Like the consistency thing for me is kind of an issue, but also does he need more of an opportunity to be a receiver 2 or even a receiver 1 in some situation? I don't know if he'll get that in Philly. I don't know what's going on in Philly. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on out there.
Yeah.
But
there is.
I got to give props to the front office, though. I mean, this is multiple times where Goody's going off and he's getting, more for the player than what he gave up to get the player. So he's getting the positive ROI. I almost wonder if it was kind of a move of opportunity, right? Okay, maybe they were having greater talks about Jalen Carter and other players, and it finally just boiled down to, look, we got to move Wicks. What do you guys, what would you do for that? And it's just like, yeah, sure, 5 and a 6. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, we got back what we spent on him, and we got a few good years out of him, and we got an extra pick. So it's an extra player, and you just never know who that turns into. So overall, I like it that they were able to do business that way. I liked Wicks, but it's just, there's not enough to go around. There's just not. And I think if he's going to peak, it probably can't be Green Bay. There's just not enough room for it. So ultimately, though, do you guys think that this is maybe preempting a bigger move? Like, hey, let's collect a few more assets to make a larger move?
I think it gives them, if you're looking at 2027, if they get all the comp picks that are projected to them, that's 11 picks next year. So I don't know if it means a bigger move, but it gives them the opportunity to have the assets to do that, or even a smaller move at cut down time, like they did last year when they got Kennard from the Eagles and they threw him a 6th-round pick. Like now you have that, you have the assets available to you. So it might not be a big name, but it might be somebody in a position of need that you do it now or right after the draft or at the end of August when you're setting your final roster going into the season. So like you have the assets to now give away, even though you don't have a 1st-round pick next year. You have an additional 6, you have the additional 4 for Gary, and then you got all the comp picks that are coming in. So it sets them up nicely to at least have that available if there's a big trade that comes available, or if there's just somebody that they need to fill a hole at some point.
Yeah,
I like that. That makes sense. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a splash at any time soon. I don't think any team at this point is going to make something crazy before the draft. And even after, like, I think what Tim said best is it's going to be a Darren Kennard situation, right? Where it's like, hey, it's not going to be some crazy prospect, but like knowing that Goody's always moving, right? 365, he's always going to be doing something. Maybe it sets them up for that. And it will be interesting just to see how they will leverage the, not a guarantee of some of the value of the 2027 picks, but knowing that they have those in their back pocket, right, at some point, that they can take a little bit of a gamble and use those in the future. Not like it's a guaranteed asset, but like there are some that are like guaranteed, right? We know it's a moving target with like, I think it's Malik Willis or Rasheed Walker. There's a couple of them in there, but nonetheless, I think it's, no, I think they'll definitely still be making moves after April. It's just kind of the way about it. And we love that, right? Those are our favorites.
I mean, they've added some great players after the draft over the years, I mean, you definitely can't sleep on it. There's some movement that happens even during the draft. He moves in the draft. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. And I'm kind of on the in Goody we trust train, right? Like, no, not everything's perfect. And there's plenty of valid arguments to say, hey, maybe he's, not as good as you could be or whatever. But overall, he's made some great moves. And I'm more along the lines of like, what did you do? What was your motivation with the move? You can't project what's going to happen from it. You can't project that Micah Parsons is going to tear his ACL. But in the moment, knowing what you knew, how was it? And those decisions are pretty damn good. There's not 100%, but in the moment of making the decision on the information he's got, he makes pretty good decisions. A lot of the guys that we felt like he moved on too soon from, he was right. Mm-hmm. So, and it's kind of unfortunate because as fans, we want, like Jair, right? You want Jair to be able to ride off into the sunset. That ends earlier than you want it to, and you can kind of go down the list. Aaron Jones, another one. Aaron Jones might be the one he was closest to being wrong about. But yeah, so over the years, he's right. So in Goody we trust. I look forward to what they've got in store for the draft because I think they, Tim, you said it. This move to me, if nothing else, signals that they want to take a receiver in the draft.
Yep.
Will the board fall to them? You never know, but it seems like they want to. And if they don't, it's like, well, the room you've got's pretty good. It's not terrible. They're probably pretty happy with that. Yeah. All right, so let's dive into the draft. We're sitting here talking about Goody, his draft record, and all of that. The big uglies, the big nasties, the big boys, the trenches. Starting with the interior O-line. This was one that I think I spent the most of my time on. I do feel very strongly that they should add one of these interior O-line guys at center, whether it is one of the true centers. I would vote for that, or one of these guys that has some versatility to them. But one thing that seems certain about this is they're going to have plenty of options. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Like I think the center class is awesome. We can probably debate throughout this entire thing over like how versatile do you want a guy at this point. We've seen that kind of maybe blow up in their face, but I love the interior offensive line, specifically the center. Tim seems to agree.
And I think there's some guards too, and that's the thing. Like I like a lot of the guards, and I'm going to give you like one of my favorite players in the draft in a second. But it's like they always draft tackles, and then they move them to guard, and that's great, and it's worked out a bunch of times. But then you look at the draft, and you're like, man, some of these guys are just guards, but they're really good guards, and they project to be really good pros. So it's like, do they finally just say, yeah, we're going to take a guy, he's a guard, and we're going to leave him at guard? I don't know. They just don't have the history of doing it, and that's what scares me. And kind of the same thing with centers. Like maybe they see somebody that's a guard and think that he can play center and guard, and that gives them the versatility. But they just love their tackles that they can move around, and I get it, and it's worked a bunch of times. But man, there's some interior guys that, to me, they're just good players. Like don't mess around and don't overthink it. Just take them, and if they're only a guard, that's fine because they might be a damn good guard.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think where I would start that, and I would not have included this name until I found out that I believe it was the pro day that they met with him, is Emmanuel Prenon. And dude is just a monster. And it's just one of those, like, look, don't overthink this, right? Like, get this beast, let him be a beast, and leave him alone. Um, and to your point, Tim, they haven't done that a lot with guard. They have done it more with center, right? You had Lindsley there for a long time. He was, came in, he was a center, and then Myers, like him or not, he was there, kind of same thing. Center at Ohio State, bring him in, plug him in, and he was there for a few years. So they seem willing to do that. That's where this class does get me excited. You said it, Matt. It's a great center class. And I do feel like these guys are going to be available for them from the top down. Now my top center personally, and I've gone through a few different lists. I like Jake Slaughter. Like, if you're going to take a center, you're going to take one of these guys he's been a center. He's got over 2,000 snaps with like 3 sacks, I think, something like that. He's played very consistently over 3 seasons at Florida. Big dude, athletic dude. Like, yeah, give me Jake Slaughter all day long. And whether it's 52, I mean, I see right here on the PFF big board, they've got him at 90. I know I shouldn't be using PFF after all their shenanigans, but bad habits, guys, bad habits. But he's one of those that it wouldn't surprise me if he went ahead of consensus, because like, you're just looking at a good football player there. He's consistent, he's athletic. Like, I just don't see the downsides, and I feel like you're going to find GMs, at least a few of them, that have a much higher weight on something like that. But Matt, who are you really excited about in this center class?
See, I got a few guys I like. Right away, that was the first position I dove into. And all of a sudden, you do a bunch of mocks, you compile a bunch of lists, and you're like, now I have 8 guys I like. This doesn't do me any good. And I think the biggest thing I like about this class is it's like, there's not really a top 30 guy or a top 60 guy. It's like, truly, like, you can get some of these guys might go in the top 60 that we don't expect, right? Like Slaughter, I see this on this list I'm looking at. He's the number 1 center. I've seen him in other mock drafts where I'm getting him at 180 or that range, right? Yeah. And it's like, it's crazy. So I feel like I've kind of stopped myself from falling in love with all of them, just being like, I'm cool with value at this point. Like, Connor Lou's a guy I could see slipping, Logan Jones, Brian Jaeger Burton. Even Jaeger Burton's one that's wild to me. So I was looking at this before we started recording and looking at his metrics from the combine. He checks the boxes for the Packers tenfold, right? He's crazy broad drum, crazy 40 guy. Didn't do a 3-cone. I don't know if he ever did a 3-cone after, but like 9.93 RAS. But I saw this on this list. He was the 19th rated center. I'm like, there's 18 better centers than this guy. Like, so outside of that, like the couple guys I was looking at, like Parker Brailsford was a guy like early on from Bama. Like, I don't really overthink it sometimes with offensive linemen. Like, you played football at Bama, let's sign you up. The only problem with him is he's kind of just small, like 6'2", 289. It does not really check the boxes for what we think the Packers are doing, and even what they previously did. That's just like a small offensive lineman. If we want to get those big nasties, like you said, like, that's not going to do it for him. Logan Jones, I think, was the name I rattled off. He does a little bit shorter arms and 3-cones based off of historicals, I guess. And then rounding this out, the one guy that I do really, really like, and he was probably the first, he was the high school sweetheart, if you will, for the center for me, was Sam Hecht, guy from Kansas State. Like, huge fan of him. Yeah. Slightly too small of arms, but I'm going to take that. I think he would be perfect for them. But there's truly like 8 or 9 guys. If you said they drafted them, it's on Sunday, we're going through it. I'm like, great, I love it. So couple names for you right there.
Yeah. Anything to add on that, Tim, as far as center goes? Is there any other guys that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of the versatile guys. Trezon from Texas A&M, who was a longtime starter, played a ton of experience, a lot of starts there, a lot of reps at Texas A&M, but he was a tackle. Most likely projects inside. I've seen him at center mostly, but he could be a guard. But he gives them that versatility where he can be a center, he can be a guard, he can be a tackle. The Packers love that. I think it's right up their alley. How good can he be at center if he just focuses on that? Who knows, because he's been a college left tackle, but he at least has that, and he's got good size, which they're real into size now, as we saw with Belton, and we saw with signing Aaron Banks. So they like bigger guys. They've kind of shifted there. Brian Parker too from Duke. He's another guy.
Didn't back off of that position when they tried to.
Right.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. You're right. I mean, Goody didn't. They want bigger offensive linemen. It's clear by their transactions, and yeah, Goody, confirmed it. They want to get bigger. They thought they were getting pushed around a little bit, and there's probably some truth in that. Whether the debate is, did they get the right big guys in Banks and Belton? But we'll see. But they do want to get bigger and stay bigger, and I think Zahn being a 6'6" center, that's pretty big. He's got the versatility. Brian Parker from Duke's got the versatility where he's played multiple positions. I like Burton as well, who Matt mentioned. Like Pat Coogan from Indiana's played a lot of reps. He's a national championship center for, whatever that's worth. But I think playing big time football in big time situations has at least a little bit of benefit for you. So yeah, I think it's maybe not a top heavy center class, but I think there's some prospects to develop. And I think if you take one in the middle rounds, when you already have a starting center in Ryan, but like this can be your center in 27, 28, something like that. It gives you time to develop them, and you don't have to go in there and, draft the Josh Myers and start him from day one because you have Sean Ryan. And Ryan's, it's a 3-year contract, but it's something they can get out of after 2, maybe even 1. You have that time to develop somebody to be that future starter. So yeah, I think there's a decent amount of centers in this class. I don't think there's very many that should be starting game 1 for anybody, but I think there's guys that you can develop that can be down the road starters for you. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Packers go that route, even though they re-signed Ryan. Like, you need depth. And if you're not completely sold on Ryan as a starter, like a no doubt about it starter, then it makes sense to have somebody there ready to go if it doesn't work out with them.
Well, they don't shy away from planning for the future either. They will go off and draft somebody to position that they've already got their starters set, because 2 years down the road, they know they're not going to re-sign everybody. So, they've shown that at pass rusher, at receiver. So that wouldn't surprise me at all if they went and got a center. I would love that move, man. Like I said, Jake Slaughter is one. I think I slightly disagree with you on that, Tim. Like, I think Jake Slaughter is bring him in day 1. He's ready to start. And talking about numbers and all of that, like, he's got a 997 RAS, man, like 32.5 vertical at 300 pounds. It's pretty awesome. Like, that's a big man with a lot of explosion. So that's one that I would love to see. But there's a lot of names, like you guys are saying, like you really can't go wrong. And this is where you start looking at the trade with Wicks, and you're like, yeah, you got an extra 6th-round pick. Cool. Yeah, honestly, 6th-round picks are going to be kind of valuable this year, man. Like, you might be looking at potential starters with that pick at some of these positions, and interior line being one of them. You can really go deep with this thing. So that they do become valuable, and especially with these guys, they've done well drafting late. So these are exciting picks to kind of talk about. And again, like, we're not looking at this going, well, if you can't get this 1 or 2 guys, then you probably don't really. It's probably not anybody you're going to get from this class. And there was a few positions last year that was the case. Corner was one of them. After a certain point, there was just nobody at corner. And so this year, seeing these positions where you're like, wow, like, there's some serious day 3 value on these things. Like, this is great. So I would, here's what I'll say. If they don't upgrade the interior O-line in this draft class, I'll be heavily disappointed.
Yeah.
Heavily disappointed.
There's guys.
So let's see here. We covered, I guess I gave center. I didn't really give a guard. You mentioned Brian Parker. He's an interesting one. He only played tackle in college for the most part.
Right.
But, he was one that I watched pretty closely at the Shrine Bowl, and he played mostly center at the Shrine Bowl. And so it does look like there's probably a lot of teams that want to see him on the interior O-line. And he did well as a tackle. So I'm imagining he's probably a pretty smart guy, knows how to transition to different positions. He did pretty well at center from what I could tell at the Shrine Bowl. I mean, he held his own in the one-on-ones. I mean, you don't know necessarily assignments and everything, so that's hard to gauge. But he's an interesting one. I don't know where to value him. That's one where it's like, is he a 3rd-round guy? Is he a 6th-round guy? So that's one that's real interesting. We got our friend Brian here. He's chiming in. Good to see you, sir. Brian Maffey here says Parker projects to center in the NFL. Yeah, so there's another one, and his teammate, like we already mentioned, Yager Burton, he's one that has that versatility tag too, because he played 3 different interior O-line positions in college. This is an interesting class. There's a lot of these guys, and a lot of them are in that like 6'4", 6'5", 300, 315 range. Your point, Matt, the guy, if you're under, 6'5" and under 300, you're undersized. It's like these guys are all mammoths, and they're all athletes too. I mean, I'm looking at these Ross scores, and it's just 9s and 8s down the board.
Massive, and they all tested well, right?
Very, very impressive. Exactly. Yeah. So these are big bodies that are getting moving, and it shows up on the tape. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Packers have had the tendency that they've had in the past, because your tackles tend to be more athletic guys. You want your guards doing pulling stuff and things like that. You need athletes. Now you've got athletes across the board, man. So, very, very, very interesting. And so speaking of tackles, let's move on into that category. We covered a little bit of the interior O-line.
Well, wait, hang on one sec.
Matt, who are? Oh yeah. Don't let me move on too quick. Tim, what we got?
I got to give you a guard because we didn't. I got to throw a guy out there because he's one of my favorite players in the draft.
I love Jump in there, man.
Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. He's an ass kicker. He can move to the second level.
Of course.
He's a guard. Senior Bowl, he took some reps at center, so maybe he's got that versatility. I don't care if he's got versatility. Just put him at guard, and he's gonna be a starter for a long time. It was last year, a lot of fans wanted some more nastiness on the offensive line. He'll bring you that nastiness, but he can play. He's big, he's physical, gets his hands on guys and moves everybody, and he can get up to the linebacker level. To me, whoever drafts him is going to get a guy that's going to be capable of starting week 1 for him. And if he's not, at some point, he's going to be a starter his first year. And if that's Green Bay, I love him. I think he's a stud. I think he's plug and play guard. Forget about it. He's going to be your whatever Josh Sitton for the next 5-7 years, whatever it may be. If they took him at 52, I would love it. I know a lot of people would freak out why they taking a guard when they got Banks and Belton. I don't care. Banks was hurt a lot last year. Have somebody ready to go if he can't make it through a season. Have somebody ready to go if he's out of here after 2026. If Belton doesn't develop, Rutledge will take his spot. Protect your quarterback, get a good offensive line. That's the number one reason to me why their offense is inconsistent, is because the offensive line had a down year in 2025. Reinforce it, and I think Rutledge would go a long way to doing that. I've seen him projected second round, third round. There was even a mock that came out, I think, last week. Peter Schrager, who's pretty tuned in, had him going at the end of the first round, which that was surprising. But Peter Schrager, again, he's pretty close with the coaches and the GMs and stuff. So maybe he knows something. Maybe he's hearing something. So now I'm like, I don't know if we'll be there at 52. If he is, I would love it. I think Rutledge I think he's a stud. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. To me, it would be no doubt home run pick at 52 if he's there. I don't know if the Packers would do it, but I love him. I think he's one of the best offensive linemen in the draft.
Well, to your point, man, we need more nastiness on that offensive line. If I watch Jordan Love's head get bounced off the turf again without somebody getting 10 flags thrown at him, I'm gonna lose it. Yeah. I'm gonna go get a flag. This, you got to have the guy who's like, oh no, not my QB. I'm coming for that flag. I'm gonna get my 15 yards. I might get ejected, man, but you're gonna know you're not doing that again. And that, if you're telling me that's who Rutledge is, that's who I want. And I mentioned Pranon before. I kind of glossed over him too. He's another one that they met with him at the I think his pro day. And he's projected a little bit higher on the list. It doesn't look like maybe he would make it to 52, but if they found a way to get him, he just looks like a monster, man. He's just a beast. That's the guy where it's like, oh yeah, sure, I dare you to mess with my quarterback. Go for it. Let's see how that goes for you, and that, whoever it is, whatever round it is, that is what I want. I want the guy, and we need an enforcer around here. So yeah, maybe that guy is at tackle too. Like, so let's move on here on the onto the tackles, the big boys who are most notably protecting the quarterback, right? That's what they're famous for, protecting the blind side. Now this is usually you've got kind of like some marquee guys at tackle. This draft, like, you got Mawiga. I'm not good with the names. The kid out of Miami, he's maybe a top 10 guy. Kid out of Utah, maybe top 10, top 15. This just doesn't feel like one of those really premier tackle classes. And for that reason, I don't really know how to gauge the rest of the class. It feels like there's some depth at tackle, but it also, the top to me, there's a couple guys that seem pretty solid. But from there's a lot of question marks that I have. I don't know, Matt, am I off base on this? How do you feel about this tackle class?
I mean, to be honest with you, like some of the names pop up, like Caden Proctor, cool, that's great. Caleb Lomu from Utah, Spencer Fanu, obviously he's a good one too. Like, you, again, not grace with pronouncing these names, so I'll probably butcher one or two just like you did. But really, I didn't even pay attention to some of these top end guys. I'm like, hey, it's cool that they're there. That's fantastic. But like, just for ROI of time, it's like it makes no sense for me to go look at tape of Caden Proctor. It's fine. Like, let him go get drafted in the first round and let someone go get their tackle of the future. So like, looking later down, there is some depth. I agree. One thing when you get later in these rounds, like, just these guys are massive, man. Like, when there's two guys that are 6'9" listed, there's a 6'8" guy. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is just like, it's like, when does it become that we're too big? Like, and that's the part where, like, that'll be interesting to see. So, just like that used to be rare, right? And it used to be a guy, that would played rugby or something that would come over. I know I forget the name, but the guy that the Eagles would have. It's like, that was just Jordan Mailata. Like, that was just a once in a lifetime situation, right? And now it's like all these guys are here. So top end guys, I think there's a few there. But I don't think there's like this, the number one overall, number two overall, right? That's been the thing for the last, I don't know, since I followed the draft. Is it the class where it's like QB1 and then the left tackle at 2? There's really not that. It's been the conversation truly of like Mendoza, maybe a quarterback after that, which would be crazy in the top 5, 3 defensive linemen, maybe Jeremiah Love, and it's like, you don't even get to the offensive tackle yet. You don't even really know who's going to pick an offensive tackle outside the top 5. So yeah, there's really not that top end one, but there's definitely some massive human beings. And do the Packers need an offensive tackle? I don't necessarily think so, but do they need a swing tackle? Probably. So where do I fall in between that? I don't really know. I don't know if they have the picks to do that, but maybe they'll find someone later in the rounds, or even UDFA, which they love to do.
Yeah, and that's one thing, we can kind of take notes on patterns that they have, and one of the things that they do is that they've got their 30 visits. I was surprised to see that they've only had 2 offensive linemen so far on these 30 visits. It really does tell me that maybe O-line is not as much of a priority as fans think it is for them. And certainly you can guess at who they'll take, but usually whatever position they're prioritizing in those visits, that's where they're going to be spending their draft capital. And there's several positions that have definitely gotten more attention than the offensive line. So I think you're right about that, Matt. I don't know that they're looking at this class and spending a lot of time at the top of it for sure. But even when you're thinking about who to use at 52, I just don't know that there's a tackle there where it's like, man, if that guy's there, you better take him. It just doesn't seem like that's the move. Even while we're sitting here talking about interior O-line, maybe there's a guy at 52 where you're like, hey, if he's there, you take him. All right. So that to me it's more of a feel than anything. I don't have a whole lot that I'm basing the feel on, but it just feels like this tackle class maybe isn't quite as strong as it usually is. But that said, here, you got Goody pulling Walker out of the 7th round and getting a starting left tackle from the 7th round for a few years. So you never know what they're looking at and how that differs. But you're right, there are some massive humans. Tim, who are some that you think might be some decent picks that for the Packers to target, even if it is later?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying. It's there's not like the home run, no doubt about it, tackle at the top. Like, they all have questions. Those guys that are going to go in the first round, and tackles go early, they go quick, they get overdrafted just because it's such an important position. So like at 52, I don't think there's going to be anybody there that's going to interest them in taking him. And that's a pretty big pick to take a tackle on when you have Jordan Morgan and Zach Tom. Like Zach Tom's not going anywhere, and you got to find out what Jordan Morgan can do at left tackle. So I think it's probably a day 3 position maybe that they look at where they can find a swing tackle, somebody that they can develop down the line, maybe somebody that can give them, tackle guard versatility that they like. I think there's a few guys for that. I don't think it's incredibly deep. I like the kid from Florida, Austin Barber, a little bit. He's real tall, got good size. He needs a lot of work, but as far as a swing tackle goes, I think he can absolutely be that guy. And then a Penn State player, Drew Shelton. I watched him a lot because watch Penn State. That's my team. He's got decent size, and like he was among several players at Penn State who kind of like hit a wall there, and they didn't develop as much as we thought. And I think a lot of that's coaching situation there. But he was once viewed as like a potential first, second round pick, and then it kind of tailed off with them. But I think he's got the ability to be a tackle. I think they could kick him in and try him at guard as well. I think the tools are there. They need to develop it. Like he wouldn't be a guy that you would want to come in and start or even be in competition to start. But I think down the line, a year or two, to really let the coaching staff get their hands on him, I think he's got that ability because he's flashed it at times at Penn State. He just hasn't really put it all together. But it's there. So those are a couple names that, stuck out to me. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they take a tackle because if you look at their team, they need the depth overall all over on the offensive line. And
For sure.
If something happens to Morgan or he doesn't work out, I'm not sure what you do at left tackle because, unless Kennard's not a left tackle. So are you going to flip Zach Tom over there? And he's never played it in the NFL. And maybe he could because he's Zach Tom, but he's taking a big risk. So like, who's your guy there behind Jordan Morgan if he gets hurt or if he doesn't play well? Like they don't have anybody. So yeah, it's something they're going to have to address.
Well, I suppose what they do in the draft will tell us how they feel about Jordan Morgan. If you're confident that he can get it done at a left tackle, then, you're probably not going to prioritize that. But if they go off and get one or two left tackles, then, hey, maybe there's not as much certainty over there. But that's one of those that to me might be one of those post-draft moves where you can find a guy who is maybe a little bit above a Kennard type of caliber, but, kind of a reliable guy, almost like a Rasheed Walker. You just let him walk away. But somebody that you can pull in that, you can plug in reliably for a season until you can address the position more permanently. But yeah, I think that this will tell us a lot about it. And then we got our friend Brian jumping back in with a sleeper tackle pick. He says Enrique Cruz Jr. from Kansas is a sleeper offensive tackle of his. Very interesting. Thank you, sir. Let's see here. I don't know that I'm even familiar with him.
I am not.
But
deep pull.
So there we go. We're digging deep in the list now. Brian's got our back here. But no, there's another one. And, again, back to the patterns that they have the top 30 visits, the 2 offensive linemen they did bring in. One of them was the kid from Ohio State, Ethan Onyanwa. I think I got that one. But this is a guy, he didn't even start, right? He's just a massive dude. I think he transferred to Ohio State and wasn't bad the year before. So that's one of those that you kind of wonder, like, what are they doing? Is that a UDFA thing? Probably. There was some chatter about why they would bring in the safety from LSU, AJ Halsey. It's like, what's going on there? My comment there is like, I think they're trying to learn something about somebody else. I think they're calling him in and it's like, hey man, like, what was it like going against this guy? Or tell us about this teammate, or, maybe they've got a strong feeling that one of the NFC North teams is going to take him. I think that was Easton Butler's comment. Maybe it's a rival that you think is going to end up with him and you want to learn a lot about him. That would make sense to me, but it kind of illustrates that these 30 visits can be used a lot of different ways.
True.
Yeah. Somebody put out there that he had a shoulder injury. That he's coming off of. So maybe they wanted to do a medical thing on him, check him out and Might be a guy they like, but not a guy they're going to draft. So maybe he's a, 4 years from now they're trying to acquire him, sort of thing. But yeah, somebody had put it out there they had an injury, so maybe they're just doing a check on him.
Well, he's 6'7", 330 pounds, so I guess it's worth checking out. Like, we'll see, But the pictures that I saw of him, he looks like an absolute monster.
Well, I was talking about the LSU safety.
Oh, sorry. I got a lines crossed there.
Yeah, the LSU safety he had the shoulder injury.
Okay, I guess it was Nagler that put that out. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then that makes sense. Check it out, see how that goes. And that's the other thing. There's always surprises in these drafts, right? Like guys will fall. You're like, oh shoot, you did not think that was going to happen. So if this is a guy that there's a lot of question marks around that they think they might have an opportunity to draft that they, maybe the consensus isn't picking up on, that would make sense. So it is interesting to pay attention to these 30 visits. We stopped calling them top 30 visits, right? Because that seems confusing when you're bringing in a bunch of guys that may be at the bottom of the draft. But as we shift through here, offensive tackles, any other guys, kind of honorable mention, like I'm not even inclined to like throw a name out there. Here, you know what? Here, I'll throw this name out. JC Davis. That's a player that caught my eye, had a strong season. Physically, I think he's a pretty big, 6'5", 335, big dude. I think he had a pretty good RAS score. So there was something about him that jumped out to me, but he seems like a good value pick. But otherwise, I'm not very excited about this tackle class. I'm just not. So just say that.
The one thing that excites me about the tackle class, I guess, like looking at just the RAS scores, I think there was 11 or 12 guys just from the combine that exceeded what the Packers normally do. They usually go like above an 8.2. There's like not seven. There's like 13 guys above that. So there's that. JC Davis was a guy that I was just grabbing in like the 6th round just because, in mocks. And then to Tim's point, I think the one that's popped up, at least for me recently, maybe I've been sleeping on it the last week or before the last week or two, but Austin Barber was one that I've seen a ton of conversation just because he does have that versatility to play swing tackle. So I wouldn't hate that pick at all. Maybe they draft Slaughter and Barber and they get two two Gator linemen. That'd be something. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and he's Austin 6'6", 315. That's a big boy. But yeah. No, to your point, they're all athletic too, right? There's a ton of them that are athletic, and that historically hasn't necessarily been the case. So it's very interesting to see how these things go. And then what's the difference, right? When everybody's a great athlete, who's a great player? That's the interesting thing to me. All right. So the next position, let's shift it on over to the defensive side of the ball and get in some of the big boys here. Now, this is a position that obviously I think has been talked about a lot this offseason. And then the movement at the position definitely has helped that. But the interior D line. So we've got Hargrave, we've got Wyatt. Those are your guys. Then, the picture gets a little bit blurry. We know some of the other guys we've got there. Brinson Stackhouse. Who's the one that I'm not Wooden?
Brooks.
What? Brooks. There he is. Yeah, Brooks. And Brooks. So yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible room. I wouldn't be upset about starting the season with those guys, except for the lack of depth, right? I think you can get the job done, but as soon as injuries hit, you're probably in trouble. So I think that's where the need for another big dude here comes into the picture for a lot of fans. Certainly, I love having that big, like the idea of the 6'5", 330-pound dude. I just love it, right? Maybe it's because I grew up with, Gilbert Brown as my first impression as what a defensive tackle is. But I just love it, like in the thoughts of trading for the Jalen Carter out in Philly. Just, dude, please give it to me. Hit it in my veins. So this is one that I think I definitely fall into. I get a little bit more biased about like how much the Packers should draft at this position or prioritize this position. But it's hard not to get excited about it too, because there's some good options here. Like this is a great class. And I was surprised because last year's defensive tackle class was really strong too. So I didn't really expect for that to be followed up by another strong class. So I don't know. Matt, why don't you start us off here, man? Like who's getting your attention the most right now?
There's a ton of guys. I mean, every time I'm going through this, it's like I don't say it's a new player, but it's like I'd be okay with that too. But I mean, right off the bat, when I started back in February, I guess, late February, Dominic Orange, obviously big citrus is huge. The player that's on the Cheesehead TV draft guide, which has had some connections in the past. The Packers have been connected to some of those guys. Christian Miller, I know who's on the thumbnail for our episode here, which is solid. Daryl Jackson's a name that I keep like mocking at an 84 out of Florida State. I don't know if that's just because I used to like the Seminoles when I was growing up, or that he's a good player. I remember watching a couple of the clips early in the year before they weren't as good anymore during the season with the Seminoles, but he's solid. Grayson Halton is one. Man, did he flash at the combine, but he just like everything measurable wise, he just doesn't fit what the Packers want to do. Like he's not going to be that 6'5", 330 guy that you want, Myles. That's just not who he is, but he's an absolute, he's solid. There are some, I think some
He's
like,
explosive.
He's explosive. I think there's some like measurables when it comes to his speed, like aren't as good though. So he's explosive, but doesn't have the 40 time, whatever. And then the other one that early on I was also like falling in love with was Lee Hunter. So like that's 5 names. There's probably 15 more that I'd be like totally fine with, but I do think like top to bottom, it is a stacked D line room. And I think the one thing to always remember is like with Jonathan Gannon coming in, we're assuming he's the defensive coordinator. We haven't seen him yet, almost coming up in 80 days now, but like, how does he prioritize defensive line, right? Like, I'm assuming he had a pull with the Javon Hargrave move. I would just venture to guess, right? He coached him before. Does he feel confident with him and Wyatt? Wyatt's coming off an injury. What does that mean? But like, they ship out Wooden out of town, like kind of a net even for what you have at that position. So I don't know. I mean, you look past who they have and it gets a little dicey. Like you mentioned Stackhouse and Brinson. I don't mind that. But overall, I just think they need a couple more bodies. Maybe you consider, I know it depends on the defense they're going to run too. Like, I don't know if it's definitive what they're going to run, but overall, there's a bunch of guys that can clog up the middle, which I would love. And I think I hope there's more guys that you think of, because I know there's at least a couple more on my list, but those are my top 5 to start.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty solid list. I would say, he's on, we put him on the thumbnail. My favorite so far has been Kristen Miller. And again, that's kind of ignoring a few at the top there. Caden McDonald and Caleb Banks, big dudes, great players. I just don't think that they're, the Packers are going to be within reach of them. Peter Woods maybe starts becoming closer to the edge, but I honestly think he'll go pretty early too. He's a really explosive player. When I watch him, his tape looks more athletic on tape than he tested. So, I kind of put those in the same category. It's like, yeah, great players, nice to have. Packers are probably not going to have a shot at those guys. Kristen Miller's the one that, like, that's where I see maybe a shot at it. Maybe he gets into that second round, and if he does, you probably have an easier time of moving up in the second round than moving back into the first. But he's one that, the thing that gets me about him, he looks very explosive, but he looks unmovable, right? Like when I watch his highlights, and I like to go to the highlights first, like show me what you're good at, and then I'll go back and sanity check that against sort of the monotonous plays in between. But he's one of the only ones that when you watch the line of scrimmage, he doesn't get pushed back. He never gets pushed back. He's very quick off the line, and he is in the offensive line's grill before they can get a step on him. And he, excellent run defender, man. The one of the things that I love about him is you can tell he keeps his eyes up when he's engaged with the offensive lineman. He's able to read the play and still make a play on a runner, depending on, whichever gap they take there. But yeah, very impressed with him. And he's one that got my attention earlier in the process before there was much chatter about him, right? There was, I think, a little bit, it was more fun to talk about some of these other guys that we've talked about. But, it's one of those, it's like, Goody loves him a Georgia dog, and this is a big dude, 6'4", 310. He just seems to fit that mold as hard as you can fit that mold. So I would not be surprised at all if they got him at 52, or if they made a move to move up a few spots to get him, if they see that he's going. But he would be the one that is kind of my, top of my list for those potential guys. But the other guys you mentioned, again, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be mad at all about that. Lee Hunter, he looks like just an immovable boulder in the middle of the line. Grayson Halton, I love his explosion. He is a little undersized. But speaking of undersized dudes, I got to go down the list a little here because now I've got a little bit of a draft crush on this guy after I've heard so many comparisons to Aaron Donald. But Landon Robinson out of Navy, who's an All-American. He had a great season. He's definitely undersized. He's like 6', 290, but tested very well. And all these comparisons are being made now to Aaron Donald, and I'm just like, now I'm peaked. All right, tell me about it. I want to know. I want to know. And you hear guys talk about how it's the undersized guy. You shouldn't sleep on them because they can get under the pads of those offensive linemen. They can be a problem. And Aaron Donald was as good as he was for a reason. He's a great player. Let's not take anything away from him. There's plenty of undersized guys that weren't as good as Aaron Donald. But it's one of those things where it's like, look, if this is a guy that's got that same sort of talent, that same kind of pop and explosion and just whatever, the meanness that made Aaron Donald great, bring him in, man. You're telling me this is a day 3 pick? My goodness. Yeah, let me have that guy. Bring him in. Let's see what he does in camp. He's a Navy dude, right? He's got military mindset. He's going to be in there to sharpen that room, and he's going to be overachieving everywhere. Like, yeah, bring that guy in the room for me. So there's one that's a little bit further down the list. But Tim, have I stolen all the thunder, or there's some have I left any names for you?
No, I mean, all the names you guys are covering are names that I've thought of too. And like Daryl Jackson, you brought him up. He was one that stood out to me because he went down to the Shrine Bowl, did really well, dominated down there, and then they called him up to the Senior Bowl, and he went there and performed well at the Senior Bowl.
Love that.
Plus, he looks great. He's big. He's long. Interesting dude. Definitely like him. Big Citrus. Everybody loves Big Citrus. He should get drafted pretty high just based on his friggin' nickname. But I think they need a nose tackle for sure. They can't get by with Nazir Stackhouse and Jonathan Ford at nose tackle. It's just not going to work. And Hargrave's not a nose, not a full-time nose. He can maybe do it in nickel situations or dime situations, but he's not going to be your run guy. It knows you don't want that. So they need a nose tackle. I was hoping they do it with a veteran in free agency, and maybe they still will after the draft or if there's a trade coming, whatever. But I think there's a few guys in this class, and Dominic Orange is one of those guys that can probably play that position. And then there's a bunch of guys that can rush the passer. You guys hit on most of them. Christian Miller is the one I really like, and he's coming up for a visit to Green Bay. So, a Georgia guy, Goody, right there, got Goody's attention. Big, long, and he didn't do much of the testing, or maybe even, I don't know if he did any of the testing, but I would assume he's probably going to test pretty well. He also does have some injury history there, so I'm sure they're checking out, all of that, and that's part of why he's coming up. But he makes a lot of sense. And another player that they're visiting with up in Green Bay, Caleb Proctor from Southeastern Louisiana, small school kid. He's in the 290s, so he's a little undersized for what they prefer, but he's kind of in that mold of Grayson Halton from Oklahoma, like interior disruptors who are going to fly into the backfield and, go for all the tackles for losses and stuff. Definitely not a nose tackle, but kind of build that pass rushing depth inside behind Wyatt and Hargrave and Brooks, which, I'll never turn down a pass rusher, whether they're an edge guy or an interior guy. You got to have them. And I think Proctor and Halton are in that mode. So yeah, I think there's going to be guys throughout the draft. I wouldn't surprise me at all if they take 2 of them, take a pass rusher, take a run stuffer, because they could use depth. And, Hargrave's contract's 2 years, but it's really a 1-year deal. And then we'll see. Brooks is coming up. Wyatt's coming up. Apparently they want to extend him, but we'll see how that plays out. So there's a need there in the future, and there's a need there in the present. So would make all the sense in the world to get 2 of them. And, we've rattled off a bunch of names. So there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of options for what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, Proctor, you mentioned him. I got to talk to him at the Shrine Bowl. He's a very confident dude. Like, he is very quick to tell you he had a good game against LSU, and not in a bad way. I'm not shooting him down, but he does not know he's from a small school. He's ready to take on the next level of competition, at least from a mental perspective. So just shout out to him. And then there's a couple of the other guys that I did get to talk to there as well. Gary Smith III from UCLA, 6'2", 340, big dude. run stuffer. Same thing. He knows he's good at stopping the run. I got an interview with him, and he got into that a little bit. He knows he needs to get better at rushing the passer. But one of those that very confident. He's very confident in his abilities. And Brandon Cleveland from North Carolina State, who played against Belton there for I think a year or two. Another one. He's 6'4", 315, big dude, run stuffer. And these guys are towards the end of the draft, maybe UDFAs, but would be good to have in the room and good additions, good depth additions for sure. And just so we're keeping track, there's like a good omen for me interviewing these guys, because last year I interviewed Stackhouse at the Shrine Bowl. Okay. So we end up with Stackhouse. I got his first Go Pack Go on film. It was great. But anyway, so maybe one of these guys ends up with us. But the interior D line class this year, I'm very excited about it. Wherever they add, whether it's at 52 or round 7, I think that there's going to be some value to be had there. Very excited about it. And then look at us, man, like keeping a good schedule here. Last but not least, we let's talk about the edge class here. I know we covered a little bit of the edge class a few weeks ago, but I don't believe we did it service. We wanted to catch back up here. And certainly we didn't have you with us before, Matt, when we did this. So what do you think about this edge class, man? I'm a little mixed on it, but what do you think on this one?
It's similar to the tackle class. I mean, not that they're going up against each other, but it's like, are the Packers going to get a top end guy? No, that's not going to happen. We've talked about the center and D line or interior D line. We're all on the same page. Like it's great depth, right? When I'm mocking at 52, the guys that I'm seeing more often, or even at 84, depending on which mock and what list I'm using, like Zion Young, Malachi Lawrence, Gabe, Jacobs, those are like the 3 that stick out to me that I'm seeing. I don't necessarily love any of those. Danny Dennis Sutton's, I know, one that's been flying around the names for a while. I guess on the first 3 that I mentioned, like Zion Young's not a sexy pick to me at all. I think he definitely, is serviceable what the Packers want to do on the edge. And then Malachi Lawrence, I think, would be a little bit more of a higher upside guy that can contribute right away, just like super high end speed off the edge. But like no one that I'm like ecstatic about, no one that I'm really even taking at 52 when I'm mocking. Like generally speaking, I'm trying to go corner right away, maybe D-line, interior D-line. Like I'll try to get an edge rusher at 84. But after that, it's like, if I miss there, I'm saying this like I even know what I'm doing. Like there's really not much after that. Like it's like crazy project guys, like a Patrick Payton or a George Gums Jr. It's like whatever. We're just throwing stuff at a wall at this point, and I don't know how much they contribute at that point. Do they turn into like the Brenton Cox Jr. project where I know he's UDFA, but like raw guy, does he come in? And he did finally contribute last year a little bit, but like really there's no one really in the middle of the rounds like that. From the top couple guys I mentioned, Young all the way down to the other, the last 2, like I don't really know what's available there. And it'll probably be a guy that can bend pretty well and has some top end speed, or not. Maybe it'll be a stouter guy that can maybe slide to the inside a little bit more. Not as big as Lucas Van Ness, but a guy that can put both hands down and try to get inside. So I don't really know. There's no one that I'm super jacked about when I'm picking them at 84, and definitely not, quote unquote, wasting a pick at 52 by anyone, unless it's maybe Zion Young if they really love him. But not sure what Goody and the team are thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I think you put it right. It's projects, right? There's guys where you're like, he's got traits, he's got something there, but it's not somebody that, again, you're looking at like, man, if you could get him at 52, it just, the top is good, right? Bailey, obviously, Bain, and the guys out of Ohio State, whatever position you want to put them at. But after that, I'm kind of like, I start to kind of look at it like, I don't know. Okay, sure. In Goody, we trust. If you guys think that this is the guy, all right, cool. He's the guy. But, at the other end of this thing, I'm looking at it like, all right, who do I really want to put on the other side of Micah Parsons, right? That's ultimately kind of what we're looking at. You got a few guys already there with LVN and the names we mentioned. I think it's, the Sorrell looks like he's going to have a exciting season 2. Getting to see Chase Oliver, that'll be cool. So you don't really need to add a starter. Who would be good depth? Who's somebody maybe that you can take a gamble on some traits, but didn't produce or so. That would be kind of what I'd look at, and maybe why a Danny Sutton is attractive because he's got traits. Might be available a little bit later. Not sure. He's kind of ranked up and down the rankings there. But that's what I would be looking at. Romello Height, I know they brought him in. He's another one that I find very interesting. Like, he's a great athlete. I do like him. And he had a great season. Like, there's not a lot to be mad about, but at the same time, you're like, is that the best addition? Like, is that the best use of the resources we have? Is that the guy in the future 3 years from now? Is that how we see it? He's undersized. And I know in the comments, you guys, they hate the undersized guys. I'm kind of there too. I'm like, you've got, not to even knock on Micah, but Chase Oliver and Micah, they're undersized, right? They're your speed demons. They're the guys that are going to be twitchy and give O-linemen nightmares, but you need some big dudes too, so that you don't get just run over when it comes playoff time and you come up against a good run game. So that I kind of go back and forth on these things. And I'm glad our buddy, our Showers brought this up here. Caden Curry is one that I'm kind of like doing a double take with. So our Shower says Caden Curry's a guy you should like in the 5th or 6th. He's a real football player, no flash, goes hard. He is a top draft crush based on where he'll go. Yeah, I'm looking at Caden Curry going like, I don't understand why he's being undervalued. Like, he had a great season at Ohio State. I'm trying to bring up his stats here real quick because I remember he had 12 sacks this season at Ohio State. He had a 90, again, sorry for using PFF, this is old data, 90 PFF grade. Seems like a dude who should be graded higher or ranked higher in the draft board. He's 6'3", 260, so he's got decent size. I don't think he has any athletic measurables out there. I don't think he's got a Ross out there. So I don't know, is he just athletically not there or what is it? But on a team where he was surrounded by athletic freaks and he got 12 sacks, I mean, he wasn't a bum. He was out there doing something. So he's one that's like, yeah, to Shower's point there, if you get him in the 5th or 6th round, that seems like an incredible value pick to me. But he's one I want to kind of go back and look at. And, he's got an 85 PFF grade in their matchup against Indiana. Like that, he had a good game against Indiana. All right, well, I need to go back and look at this because that's one that I don't understand why he would be pushed further down. But yeah, it's projects to me. This edge rusher class is projects to me. Tim, what do you think, man? Are we missing anything here?
No, I agree with what you guys are saying. For me, if they took an edge at 52, it would make sense. Like if it was Young or Dennis Sutton, even Gabe Jacobs, like those ones would make sense. But as you get in like the second day, I wonder if the Packers look at it and be like, man, what we already have is better than what we're going to be drafting now. Like they look at Sorrell and Oliver and Brenton Cox, and they just figure like whoever we're going to draft isn't getting snaps ahead of these guys. So we're going to just not go edge here. And like, I would get that because I don't think there's great depth. Like I think to your point, everybody's a project. They all have flaws that they have to figure out, like major flaws that could, cause them to not be NFL, well, not stay as NFL players. So yeah, it's not a real deep class. Even the guys at 52, like you're talking about number 2 pass rushers, nobody that's going to come in and be like an elite starter or anything like that. They're going to be complementary players. And, I like Zion Young, I like Dennis Sutton, but both of them have weaknesses and flaws that are, red flags. I would be comfortable with either one of those two at 52, but knowing full well, like you're not getting, somebody that's going to come in and give you 8 to 10 sacks every year. Like maybe down the road they can get to that level, but it's going to take some work. And yeah, and they're projects. So it's not a deep class. It's not a great class. And I think once you get into the third day, it's for me, I'm drafting for size. I want to see them get bigger and stay bigger on the edge. Not that they've gotten too small. The Oliver pick was surprising. Because he's 240, and that's just not what they've drafted. They've liked the bigger guys. And Parsons, I know Parsons is smaller. I don't care what his size is. He's Micah Parsons. He's a Hall of Fame player.
Matter.
So like, yeah, it doesn't matter, but you don't want to get too many guys that are smaller like Oliver. And I think they, historically they like Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and Lucas Van Ness, and those are bigger edge guys. So I think that's what they're going to look for. I don't think it's going to go the other way, even with whatever Gannon's defense is going to look like, even with the drafting of Oliver. I think the Oliver thing was kind of like we just really like what this guy could do as a situational pass rusher. Let's take a shot. It's day 3. Let's take a shot. We like the player. I think they're going to, if they take an edge, it's going to be a bigger guy, a longer guy that can give you physicality, that can set the edge against the run and play on all 3 downs. And I'll just throw another name out there that we haven't talked about, and that's Kieron Crawford from Auburn. They just hired Auburn's general manager in the offseason to be a scout for him. Maybe it's nothing, but he's got all the inside information. There's the other Auburn kid that's going to go in the first round, Falk. He might know something. He might really like this kid and be able to tell the Packers all about him. It might be a guy they like. Maybe he tells them he stinks. Who knows? But I just think it's worth mentioning they hired a dude from Auburn to be one of their scouts. So he's got pretty good intel on him and everybody else in the SEC.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And he had a solid season. He had 5 sacks, 26 pressures. I mean, he had a decent run defense grade at 73.9. I mean, yeah, that's a solid pick right there. He's ranked right in the 90s, so that'd be like a 3rd round pick. He had a good game against Georgia. I mean, yeah, it's a solid player right there, and worth noting too, for sure, that they would hire a guy from Auburn as a scout because he's in those conversations, no doubt about that. Yeah, and then and it's not. I guess I want to try not to poo-poo too much on this class. It's not like this is just a class of bums. One that I really got hyped about after the Shrine Bowl was Mason Rager out of Wisconsin, and Matt, obviously you've had your eyes on him. I mean, so let's give him a little bit of time here because he had a phenomenal Shrine Bowl, like just wrecked the Shrine Bowl.
Incredible.
What do you think? I mean, obviously Wisconsin had a forgettable season. We'll just call it that. I mean, did that just bring down everybody's performance? Like, why would a guy like Rager be held back? I mean,
yeah, I mean, honestly, Rager, going into it, I'm like, okay, I know they had like 2 guys, I think they were going to the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, and Rager was one. I'm like, okay, well, he's going to have to show out. And he had, not only did he have a great game, I think he had like, at least 2 sacks, maybe a fumble or a pick or something crazy. And then even like the practices, he was dominating. So it's like, when I look at guys from Wisconsin on defense, like, it's not a shock. Like, they have to test well. Like, they might play well in Wisconsin or Big Ten football, or I guess not this generation of Big Ten football, but 5 years ago, Big Ten football, right? And he tested well. Like, I mean, I thought Rager maybe a 7th round pick, but like, he definitely, even undrafted, I could see him absolutely being drafted at this point. Like, I mean, you talk about that. I remember watching that game. I had it up on my phone, I think, doing something, and I'm like, this Mason Rager, like, that's the Wisconsin. He's going crazy. It was like, and like, just talking about the week or 2 leading up to it, I think, with some friends, I'm like, maybe this guy will be, get drafted. And it's like, I think that solidifies him, right? Like, and maybe that's super recency bias, but like, it seemed like he had a good year, and all of a sudden he does that in the biggest stage for basically his potential career trajectory, and he did awesome. So like, yeah, no, that's another player that they would consider. The Packers seemingly never draft Badgers, which is just kind of bizarre, right. But no, wouldn't be a bad project as well.
Yeah, no, it looks like he would be a day 3 guy at this point, which, I've looked at some of these things. It's like, man, you're getting a guy like that on day 3. That's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's great value for sure. And a guy that I compared him to, having a great performance at the Shrine Bowl last year was Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, running back, and he was a guy that nobody really knew much about. He blew up the Shrine Bowl, had a great Shrine Bowl, and then obviously had a great rookie year with the Commanders. So definitely worth keeping an eye on some of these guys lower on the list. You just never know where they're going to come from, what they're going to do. But this is a fun overall draft class for me. Next week, we're going to get to dive into the DBs a little bit. And I think, start talking about the corners. That's sort of been the one that has been the hottest topic of the offseason, I think. So we'll get into that class next week. But, any other final thoughts, Matt, for just about this class in general? Anything to go over?
It's been a fun class to look into. I think definitively most people following the team casually or super in depth hey, D line, corner are super important. I think after that, offensive line is important, and then it's like a laundry list. Like it's mostly offense at that point. Like give us a running back to replace Marshawn Lloyd, another receiver potentially, as we talked about at the top of the show, maybe there, tight end, who knows? But like it's been nice to like really laser focus on those like two picks, being corner, D line, and then offensive line. I have a feeling they're gonna they always do. They always draft more offensive line than we expect. That's just the nature of how the NFL works and how the Packers work. But it's been nice to be able to really focus on those corners and the defensive line. Yeah, and just every year there's always a pick or two that just makes us super confused. Last year, Savion Williams, and maybe Anthony Belton as well. Year before, I don't remember which one, but I can definitely go on the list. And they're mostly third round picks, as we've come to find out, or maybe even first round picks. But they don't have a first rounder this year. Extra fifth rounder shouldn't hurt. But no, it's fun diving into some of these. I got to do some of my homework on a couple of them. The Caden Curry one brought my attention. Rutledge was another guy that I didn't really have on my list that I should have, that Tim was very, very adamant of. And I'm glad he went through that because it's on my list now. It doesn't sound like he'd be there at 52, but if he was there at 52 and they draft him, I think that would be the chaos pick that we're known to have, but it might be a hell of a day one starter and replacing one of those guards I got from last year. But, appreciate you guys having me on. It was a hell of a time and good to chat with you guys.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on with us, Matt. It's great to have you, and getting your extra perspective and insight, man. Is definitely great to have you. Tim, any final thoughts here about our positions we went over? I mean, we can't get your closing thoughts on the draft because you got to save those for next week. But just the flyover of what we did today. Yeah.
No, I'm excited because I think there's needs offensive line and defensive line, so expect multiple picks for the Packers. And I've said it before and I said it tonight. Like their offensive line needs to get better, and that's going to help everybody's bitching and complaining about the floor and its play calling and the system and Stenovich and this and that. Have your offensive line play better, and that's going to solve a lot of the problems offensively. So interested to see what they do there, and obviously big needs at defensive tackle and what they do at edge rusher. I think it will be kind of telling about how they feel about the guys that are already in the building there. So yeah, there's players, but there's a lot of projects. So which ones are the Packers willing to take risks on will be interesting, but expect multiple linemen on both sides of the ball at draft time.
And if they do that, I think they will get better as a football team. So I'm with that, man.
Build the trenches.
If you improve the O-line, you will be less frustrated about the offense in general. That is true. All right, guys. Well, if y'all have been hanging with us this long, thank you so much for hanging out. Hopefully enjoyed Matt joining us tonight. Go follow him, Matt Freilich on Twitter, X, whatever, all the things, right? We've got all the different channels these days. Matt, anything specific you want to shout out, man? I didn't give you a chance to do that.
No, it's okay. Follow me on Twitter, like you mentioned, at Matt_Frey_. Pack-A-Day Podcast. Any follows, likes over there is greatly appreciated. Saturday episodes, as always, with Eli and Janelle. Right now we're in the middle of draft mode, so it's Eli, myself, and Rob Rieger, who brings a wealth of knowledge. Did write for the Cheesehead TV draft guide, did all the quarterbacks. But no, we're breaking all those down and gonna dive in a little bit more this weekend, I think, and then come next week it'll be Thursday afternoon before we know it. We'll all be sitting there waiting to see if something happens. Related to the Packers, mostly will probably be hate watching to see who the Bears, Vikings, and Lions draft. And then, but no, check out Pack-A-Day Podcast and support everyone else putting out Packers content because there's some great people in this community, and it's awesome to finally meet with you guys.
Oh man, likewise, couldn't agree more. No, I appreciate you, Matt, and if y'all been hanging out this long, jump on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit subscribe for us. It is a big boost for us, helps us find other Packers fans. And, of course, come hang out with us next week, guys, doing cornerbacks. Have we talked about safeties? What else are we doing? So just cornerbacks?
Safeties next week. All the DBs next week.
Just DBs, right. DBs next week. Cornerbacks, safeties, all the DB fun that we're going to be having. So,
and our final thoughts going into the draft, too.
Of course. Right, like a draft. I guess it's called draft preview, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll
Draft
spend a little extra attention on the DBs. Then we might just shift into draft crushes and all of that. And one of these, I guess we're not going to do our mock draft, which who cares? Like nobody. There's a million of these things flying around every day. It's not like anybody's like waiting for the Pack Weekly Pods mock draft. So yeah, come hang out with us next week, guys. Get a little draft preview in. Talking about DBs, having fun as always. Of course, go